Blue Water CRM, cloud-based CRM software specifically designed for collection agencies, debt buyers, and sellers. Let's log in. So you can see we are logged in as an administrator, a manager, or a super user. And in this video, we are going to go over the e-commerce component of the system, both from a manager standpoint and from a collector standpoint. So let's get started. So on the left-hand side, we're going to click on the management link. And we're going to look at a couple of different items in here. There is a credit card submission limit and a check submission limit. Now, these two limits limit the amount of time that a person can process the same credit card or check. You get charged every time you hit the gateway. There's a fee for that, whether the transaction goes through or not. So you can actually set a limit that says, hey, whenever card 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 comes through, if it goes through more than twice, the third time they're not allowed to process it, and it must be overridden by the manager. So this is an interesting component of the system, but it locks you down from sending too many bad requests to the gateway that you are charged for. Second item I'd like to draw your attention to is the manage payment types. So if I click manage payment types, you can see the payment types that we have in the system. There are currently 18. And if you have ideas for other ones, please let us know and we can add those. And you can see there's business checking, savings, mail-in check. Normal ones is direct pays, open payment, outsourced payment, direct pay, an IVR payment, which we have because we have an IVR component of this system. There's abbreviations. And you can tell right here if it's active or not, meaning not everybody's going to use all of these. So you can turn those off so your collectors, when they're processing a payment, do not have to go by anything that they're not going to use. You can assign and decide if there's going to be a processing fee, what the fee is for that by an amount, or if there's a percentage fee. So if for business checking you charge $11% of that transaction, it'll do the calculation. If there's a direct fee, like we see here for savings of $5, you can have a fee assigned to it. So it allows you to control all the different payment types in the system. Let's close this up. Let's go into the main part of this, the e-commerce system. Now we're going to skip over the trust section of this. That'll be covered in another section. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to scroll to the bottom, and I want you to look at these two items right here in blue. If I click right here, I will see the payment gateways. So there are an infinite number of payment gateways that you can put into the system. You can see right now that you can add, edit, delete gateway. You can tell the provider, the gateway. There's a gateway abbreviation, which is more for us. It's part of the management component. You have to worry about that, but we do share that abbreviation with you. You can right here see if it's a check or credit card gateway and if it's a default gateway or not. So you can see right here we have a check gateway and a credit card gateway that are default gateways, and they're listed as yes. And that means that the majority of the payments that go through the system will go through these two gateways because it's considered agency money, and we'll manage that separately. So everything will default to that. Now, in some cases, you may need to use other credit card gateways. You may have a specific client that wants you to have a separate trust system. You can actually set that up here. And we also allow you to have multiple payment gateways for the same client, same vendor. So Y2 Payments, USAV Pay, you could have dozens of those. You can have them designed and assigned to different ones. If I go to, let's look at this right here. Let's go to Edit. I can see that this is USAE Pay. This is the gateway name, the abbreviation. It's a credit card. We put in our source key and our PIN, and then that is reserved for us. And that is hard program. I shouldn't say that. It's a variable. The IDs, the username or password, depending on which gateway, are variables, and you can change those as you like. So if you have multiple gateways, you can put each one of those variables, the username, password, ID, security information into here. The system holds it in an encrypted database and allows you to make payments and transactions with it. So this is an interesting system. If I go here to Payment Gateway Provider, I can see the providers that we currently have, and these are lists, not just a basic one. If you have ones that aren't listed here, please tell us who they are. We can simply add it. It's a very simple process for us to add an e-commerce vendor. Most of the schema that they follow is the same, but we like to have individual names. So if your provider isn't listed here, please let us know and we can very simply add it. One other section I'd like to show you is I'm going to go into the client section, go into clients. I'm going to hit edit and I'm going to scroll down and you can see right here, this particular client, 16788, scroll down to the bottom, has a gateway assigned to it. So there's the Y1 check and the USA ePay gateway. So these two things are specific to this client. So whenever a collector takes a payment, it will be processed through this gateway. All right, let's scroll down. Let's go through all of these links. So if I click on Cards Review, when I click on that, I can actually go out to the gateway and see any of the credit cards that are there. And then I can, over here, I can actually submit those credit cards. That means cards that were due for today. Now, many of our clients have this automated. So if you're taking hundreds and hundreds of payments, you probably don't want to stand here and click every one of these. We have the ability to automatically ping the gateway, and we usually do this somewhere between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. or any time that you would like. This can actually go out to the gateway. It will take all of your credit cards that you have. So let's say you take a post-dated payment and you had one card that was due yesterday, one card that was due today. Today at 6 a.m., when the system comes up to 6 a.m., it automatically sends all of the accounts across and it will send it right through for you. So very good feature for handling post-dates. So you don't have to remember how to handle those. The next thing is cards post-dated. So if I come here, I can see what credit cards have been post-dated. It just gives me a list. I'm not going to click on this. I can see cards by employee. I come here, I can see all my employees. I can see if it looks up items that are due today or post-dated. I can view cards by client, which is another cool feature. I can use cards by input. I can see how many items have been input. Maybe we'll run this one. And they're very similar, just pulling from different fields within the database. So I hit search and you can see right here that there was one input. It was input on 12/29, and that's the information. So you can get a lot of different cross-references. You can look by client, you can look by input, by employee, by department. Some very interesting stuff. The next link right here, credit card exception. This is a great tool. The credit card exception, and I'm going to show you check exception at the same time. Now, these ones right now don't work. They're not set up because we're not pinging gateway, but the credit card exception is directly tied to the cards review. So in the morning, when you come in, you have your cards review. Right down here, you have your checks review. And what happens is if you've given us instruction at 3 o'clock, 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m., all the credit cards will run. They'll run against the gateway. As would normally happen, some of those credit cards may be declined. So if they're declined, you will see right here, credit cards exception, meaning these cards were sent to the gateway, but did not go through. You either would want to reprocess them or resubmit them or call the debtor. Anytime a card exception appears here, it also appears on the collector's dashboard when they log in. They will always see their credit card exceptions and check bounces first. So this is a very good tool. So our system automatically goes out to the gateway. It sees that the credit card is good. If it's good, it brings back the information, updates the count, updates the balance. If it's bad, those exceptions appear on the credit card exceptions. Then I have the ability to see credit cards by exceptions by client. So if there's a process or we're trying to mine the data, we can see that. We get a list of credit cards that were deleted. Sometimes agencies, collectors will put in stuff to build their pipeline and then wind up deleting this. This will show you any credit cards that have been deleted. Now here's cards override. Now, if you looked in the beginning of this, if you remember from the beginning of this, I showed you some of the management links, and there was the credit card timeout and the check timeout. This is for managers or supervisors to override that timeout. So if the debtor's on the phone with one of your collectors and they want to use the same credit card and say, listen, I promise there's money here. The supervisor gets on the phone, confirms it. They can come in here, put in the account number and actually override that timeout so that it'll actually go through. It doesn't change the timeout for the system, but it's overridden here. It'll show up in the notes, it'll show it up in the audit trail, and they can actually override the pre-program of 2 tries for each account number. And you can override that as you like. You can also go right here and see total credit cards received by client, advisor, so on. You can see cards that were reversed. You can see cards read to a client. So this is a listing of all of the information. The reversed ones come from a manual process, and that means that you process the payment and your merchant got a chargeback and they said, well, I'm not validating this. That gets into you, but those reversed charges appear here. Let's scroll down. Go to checks review, very similar to what we saw up above, which we kind of discussed. This lists all of the checks that are available and ready to go. These can be individually submitted. And like I said before, if you have hundreds or thousands that you're submitting, we can automate that. You just tell us what time you want it to go. We put that into the system and it will go for you. Review checks NSF. This is for your bounces. So the system will go out every day at 4 o'clock. It'll ping your gateway. It'll bring back all your bounces. And all the bounces will be listed on the checks review NSF. It'll also appear as a check exception on your collector's system. So on their dashboard, they always see the bad news. Checks that have bounced, credit cards that have declined. You can see checks for post-dated. You can check post-dated mail-in checks. So if you want to see if there's any mail-in checks in the system, you can do that. When a mail-in check is due, the mail-in check appears under the checks review, but obviously you can't process it. The reason for that is that it's a reminder to someone to check with the accounts team to say, okay, we have a check that's due today. You can process one of the 10 checks that they sent us, this number. So this is an actual reminder for when you get mail-in checks, so it doesn't get locked in a drawer and then nobody winds up cashing it. Or even worse, cashes it too early and it bounces. So you can see checks that were post-dated. You can see checks by employee, by department, by a particular client, by input. You can see checks that are deleted. Another cool tool, checks override. So here's the same thing. So if a check has gone through and it's declined, or I should say bounced twice, and the person wants to override it, all they have to do is come here, input that account number, and then process the search button, and it'll actually clear that so they can actually process the payment. You can see checks received, all the checks that you received and what you've done with them, and you can do reporting on checks bound. So there's a lot of things that we can do, a lot of tools within the payment gateway system, the e-commerce system, that can help you manage every single aspect of every transaction that goes to the system. So you get the hang. We can do as unlimited amount of e-commerce gateways. E-commerce gateways can be assigned to the agency. They can be assigned to a specific client as well. What I'm going to do right now is I'm logged in as a manager, supervisor, or a super user. And as such, I always log in and I see the manager side of the system. If I was a collector, I could go over here and collector mode. I can switch to collector mode. Collectors, when they log in, will always see this particular screen. And what I'd like to do now is I want to show you how to take a payment and how that affects the system. So let's do that. Okay, now I'm logged in as a collector and I can see the collector screen. Remember, if you're a supervisor, you see both sides. Collectors will only see this and their queues. So we take a look at this account. Let's go right to the money part of this. So we can see 2 lines I'd like you to look at. There's this line right here, which is strictly yellow. You can see the principal balance, interest balance, attorney fees, interest owed, principal owed, NSF fees, and it shows you the status of this particular account as to when it was placed with the agency. Below that, you can see all the current balance. So the current balance is 885, which is a combination of 745, the 10, the 25, the 35, the 40, and the 30. So right here shows you the running balance of everything. Right here shows you the original balance. It's a great tool, so when your collector is on the phone with a debtor, they can share the information, they have it right in front of them. If you look to the right here, you can see that there's an MD percent and an MD dollar. And this is the markdown percent. We've set this particular account at a 60% markdown, and you can see that the markdown dollar is $531. And the markdown simply means the negotiating point for what you're allowed to work with based on your contract with your client. So you can see the markdown dollar amount is $531. However, the current balance is $885. So you're enabling your collector to make a deal between $885 for a payment in full down to $531. And somewhere between these two payment hierarchies, we're allowed to take the payment, or your collector's allowed to take a payment. If you scroll down, you'll notice that there's no payment buttons at this point. There's no payment information, and no other information is updated on this particular account. Right here in the middle, you see a thing called agreed amount. And what the system does is it allows the collector to negotiate with the debtor and then make an agreement. So we know that somewhere between this account will be somewhere between $885 and $531. So let's click this link, and now it allows us to put in some information. Now, for the purpose of this, I'm going to put it as 800. I'm going to hit update, and that updated the system. You can see that the amount agreed upon has been hard-coded into the system or can't be changed. You also notice that the markdown dollar amount has disappeared, meaning this count has been locked down and it can't be changed. Now, on the manager's side, the managers can undo this and they can update it, but the collectors cannot. They can put in request. So by making this settlement agreement, the agreement for $800, I can now see what's going on with this account, and I can actually take a payment. So let's scroll down. And you can see right here in our notes section, user 1 on 112, settle the account for $800 at this time. So all the information is here. Now, if I scroll down, I have two options. I can do pay full now or pay partial or post-dated. For the purposes of this, I'm going to click pay partial or post-dated. So let's do that. All right, now when I look on my right-hand side, I get my payment window, and I get to choose a payment frequency up to 20. For this, I'm going to choose 4. I can choose a payment type, checking, MasterCard, Discover, Visa, or mail and check. And remember, from the other side of the system where we had our active and inactive, this represents what was there. So I'm going to hit mail and check, and I'm going to take a weekly payment of $200 a piece. I have to put in a check number for each one of these. Now I hit submit. When I hit submit, if this was an e-commerce transaction, it would hit the gateway. It would tell you if it's good. Also, if you use a second voice, the second voice link would be enabled, and someone else in the office, in the agency, on that floor would need to confirm the payment. So in this case, we're not doing second voice. We bypassed that. So only one person needs to talk to them. And you can see right now that the account has been updated. You can see right here that the current balance is now $600. And how it got to $600 is we took a payment of $200 that was good for today. We have our information here for how everything else remains. There's another thing I'd like to draw your attention to. I want to scroll down. And this right here is the payment hierarchy. The payment hierarchy is set on a client-by-client basis. And what the payment hierarchy allows you to do is allows you to set a payment hierarchy for as money gets sent in. And what this is showing me is that I took a $200 payment. $200 of it went to the principal balance, and there's manager's fees, interest, legal, and so on. These ones can change based on how you program the system, but these will represent all the payments in each of the vertical payment solutions. So you'll know exactly how much of this went to principal balance. So because we took a payment of $200, we know that the information is against principal balance. If you look right above, you can see the checks pending for the next set of payments. So I have another one for $200. I have one on $119, $125, and $22, and you can see that these are not processed. Because they are not processed, the managers can override these, they can delete them, they can update them, they can interact with them. The collector, however, is not able to do that. So I scroll back down. You can see right here, and if I click on payment, I can see that I have one single payment. You can see right here, transaction, mail-in check. If I hit on check info, I can see the specific check info, very much like the snapshot, but in more granular form. And if I look at the payment hierarchy, I can see actually how this payment was applied from a rank type. And if I look below it, I can see the order or the hierarchy. So P for principal gets paid first, and we can see that that is done here. Okay, what I've done now is I switch back to manager's mode, and I'm going to put that account number in here. Paste it. Let's do a search. We can see that it comes up. This little icon right here means that there's more than one account in the system where the social security number or the SIN matches. And that's what this is telling us. I click on the account and I can see the information about it. I can see the current balance, the principal balance, what it was placed, all the interest. You can see right here there's an edit button, which allows us to edit this information as a manager. Anytime this is touched, the audit trail will get it. It'll say who did it, what they changed it from, what they did with it, and so on. The account payment amount is $800. That's what they agreed to. This one is actually calculating interest, and the amount is agreed to, meaning that it was settled. That was when we pressed the link. You can also see what queue it belonged to. If I click no, I can actually take the agreed amount that was agreed to and undo it, meaning to open the account. So essentially, it would set everything back. It would only show a $200 payment, and the original balance of $885 would then appear minus the $200. So there is the ability for the managers to override. They're forced to give a note here. You also have the ability to zero out this account. So for whatever reason something happened, you can zero out the account. It zeroes out everything, puts it into a closed status, and it's no longer in anyone's queue. Let's go back up to the top. We are going to click on payment history. So when I click on payment history, I can see the client, the account number, the user's commission ID, the credit date, the transaction. I can see the contingency amount. If I hit edit, I can actually change that contingency amount for this particular account. Contingency is set at the time of import. So when you import a file, you can assign a particular contingency. But if you have a conversation or something happens and it needs to change, you can actually change that contingency, which will be reflected in your contingency reports. You also have the ability right here to void this document. Okay, let's click on payment order. I click on payment order and I get another snapshot where I can actually see how the payments were applied. And this is for the manager's view. If I click on credit card information, I can see the credit cards. Now, we didn't process a credit card for this, but if they were, they would appear here and they would look very much like this, which is the check information. I hit check information. I can see that these are mail-in checks. I can see the account number that they came off, the user number that took it, the Reco ID, which is a second voice, your commission ID. I can delete it or I can edit this. So I can make changes to this however I see fit, and the system will update you. One of the other links I like to tell you is the fee management. It gives you the ability, depending on any number of things, where you can actually add a fee to the system. You can add an adjustment if you want to put an additional check bounce fee, a credit card bounce fee, a credit card reverse, or some legal fee. Those can be added here and be added directly to the account. If I wanted to put another $25 on this account, I could actually do that right here. The information has been submitted, and now you can see that there's information here. And it also gives us, ironically, the ability to override it, and it's telling us that this, at this point, has not been paid. In this video, we covered a lot. We covered the e-commerce system, how to set up e-commerce gateways in the system, the ability that you have unlimited amount of gateways. You have the ability to sign up a specific gateway to a specific client. You can override checks or credit cards that have been used and go outside of the override window. We learned how to take a payment on the collector side. We learned how to view the payment hierarchy. We learned how to edit certain items in the payment system and add additional fees to the system. And we learned in general how the e-commerce system works. This is a big part of the system. Everything here is tied into reporting, so whatever you change will affect the reporting and the audit system of it. Thank you for watching this video. Each video is designed to give an in-depth overview of every single component of the system. My goal is to make you a blue water CRM expert. Thank you for watching.